What's up, party people? No deals. And look how crooked my laptop looks right now, and I don't give a fuck. Look pretty good, though. Eye thing doesn't look very bad. I think I'm going to keep it forever. How's everybody doing? This market is crazy. I might as well start off with that. So, if you are sitting on profits or you're very exposed to the stock market right now, I would seriously consider about trimming your exposures because this is mania. And I don't know when it's going to stop, but the music will stop. Um, as you all know, half my portfolio is in biotech and half my portfolio is in M&A. The M&A side of the portfolio has been a disaster, basically BHF and Forward, and Yext, just 0 for 3. And the biotech side has been amazing. And I'm sitting on a lot of long-term and short-term capital gains there, and I'm still trimming today, and I'm shorting futures today, maybe a third of my portfolio. I have no idea when the top's coming, but it's coming, and it's going to be ugly, and I'll lose lots of money when it finally comes. But anyway, that's your public service announcement. My opinion. Get out while the getting's good. I want to talk briefly about Forward, and then I do have a kind of new idea after Forward with a little edge that I wanted to talk about on here. So stick around for that. So Forward today announced that their CIO, Chief Information Officer or Chief Technical Officer, I can't remember which one it is, has resigned effective immediately, and they hired on an interim basis a retired executive that hasn't worked in 2 years to take over. And then we have no news about a break, anything about the deal, anything about that. So two things here. First of all, he's only 49 years old, I think, 48 years old. He almost certainly resigned for another job, which means he's been looking for that job or been talking to that new employer for months. So he wouldn't have known what the sale process was going to do when he started that process. Second, we have no break with him leaving his job, which I find interesting. Again, like if this really is over, I think given major C-suite changes, he's not an important executive, but you would still get a break with that, and we have no break. And finally, he wouldn't have made any money in a change of control. He doesn't have a lot of stock or any kind of stock package that you would have said he wants to stick around long enough for. Also, he wouldn't have been fired with private equity buying them. They still need a CIO, CTO, whatever the fuck he is. So he didn't give up anything by leaving. That's my take on the Forward CTO or CIO. I think it's a CTO leaving. Never like to see this stuff. That probably means that we don't have a deal tomorrow, but I don't think it means a whole lot. The idea that I want to talk about, which I talked about briefly a few months ago, is PLYM, which is a REIT that got a bid at $24.10 by 6th Street, I think is the name of the private equity firm. And what made this interesting was that 6th Street a year ago did a JV deal with PLYM, and as a result has a bunch of warrants in the company and put in hundreds of millions of dollars to this JV, and presumably is close with the management team to have done that JV and then over the last year get to know them. So we woke up in August to them bidding 24.10 for the company. The stock has been between 21 and 22 since. The stock was 15 before, and people think that the management team is bad actors because that deal they did with the JV thing was bad a year ago, and they think that they're worried the management won't do the right thing here. My take then and my take now still remains that this is a friendly deal, that there's nothing about it that seems hostile to me. PLYM, 6th Street doesn't even own any common in PLYM, just has these warrants that are at the money or out of the money. And I don't even think they're going to fire the CEO once they take it private. I think 24.10 is probably a pretty fair price. I think he might get a little bit a bump from there to maybe 25 or 24.50. I think the letter is compelling that they wrote. They offered a go shop period if they go to exclusivity and sign the deal. Um, and the last thing I would note is that if you look at the comps since mid August, they're up about 5 to 10% across the board. So there hasn't been any kind of cap rate movement since mid August. That's your biggest risk with these kind of things, is that there's a major change in valuation, very sensitive to interest rates, and that 24/10 is no longer attractive. So, why is it interesting today? Well, PLYM puts out an earnings date, a date for them to be reporting earnings, um, usually between the 2nd and the 8th of every month before they report earnings. So, for instance, if they're reporting Q1 in May, they put it out April 2nd to April 8th, the date of earnings. If they report Q2 in August, which they do, they put out the date they're reporting July 2nd to July 8th. And finally, in Q3 in November, they put out the date October 2nd to October 8th. I don't use Q4 for any of this stuff because those are always different because they report later for Q4. If you go back to 2022, that's the farthest I went back, it's always been before the 8th, sometime between the 2nd and the 8th. This year, they did it, I think, on the 7th in July and on the 6th in April. And for Q3, previous 3 years, they did it on the 3rd, I think the 4th, and the 6th in October. We are now at October 15th, and there has been no earnings date press released. That's very unusual for two reasons. One, if the company was hostile to this bid and didn't want to accept the bid, they certainly are going to do business as usual, put out press releases when earnings are going to be announced, and report earnings and have conference calls. That's just what you do. Uh, it only hurts you to go silent because then you have to then explain why you haven't put out this earnings press release. So that in of itself would be interesting, but it gets a little more interesting. So they don't just put out an earnings press release. They put out a comprehensive analysis of their or recap of their previous 3 months, leasing activity, acquisitions, dispositions, and what share repurchases they made. So you can go pull it up. It's a lot. It's not just we bought we were putting out earnings in 4 weeks. So I could come up with a pretty good reason why you wouldn't want to put that out a week, 10 days, 2 weeks before you are about to sell yourself. It's a lot of disclosure. And for whatever reason, on October 15th, we're sitting here, they have not put out that information yet. So I believe a deal is coming imminently. I think it will come, within the next week or two. Certainly, I think by earnings. It's been 2 full months since they bid the 24/10. They asked for exclusivity in the 13D, and then said they were fine with the go shop period after. I think 2 months is more than enough time to complete the due diligence and to come to an agreement on price. I might have thought it would have taken longer if they put out this press release for earnings, and they have not. So, in my mind, there's a substantial uh, discount to 24/10. I think it's likely it goes for more than that, 24.50 to 25. And there's a dollar a year dividend, a little less, like 96 cents a year dividend that will be still available once they sign. So, put another way, the deal will trade very tight because you have that yield, that 4% yield, and it'll be a low risk deal in general. So it'll trade day one very close to whatever the headline price is that they sell for. On your break side, it's going to go to $15 or $16, though the comps have gone up. Again, I think your real read here is this a friendly deal or is this a hostile deal? And is it a fair price? And I think I'm almost certain it's friendly, and I think it's a fair price. The only pushback I got back 2 months ago is if it's friendly, why wasn't it just signed and done secretly? I think it's a market test. You put out the price, you see where it trades. If it trades over, you can't take it. It also is a PR to the world that they're for sale, so you can do a market test that way, so they don't get outbid by other interested buyers. And Yeah, I mean that's my personal view. So I made that pretty big. That's like a 20% position now, up from 5%, and did it this week. Um, and we'll see what happens. So regarding BHF, nothing's changed there. It's obviously down today. Um, and yeah, as far as YEX goes, um, nothing's changed there, though. I'm obviously really upset the way it's traded. Software is traded really bad. So we sit and wait. I'm obviously more sanguine now about what the final price would be there, but I still think it'll be close to 10, somewhere between 950 and 10. But I'm just turning off the Roomba. But I try not to let price dictate my views, but it's hard in this environment where all my names, Forward, BHF, Yext, are just trade like shit. So it's hard for me not to become depressed watching them all day. All right. Oh, and KROS. KROS. That is awful. And it is not the fault of ADR1 or Pontifex. I know you all know that I'm friendly with ADR1, but they have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors and their investors only. It's the board of KROS that fucked us and who are immoral, unethical bastards. Um, what they did is wrong and totally self-serving so that they can keep their jobs and their board seats. Um, but given the circumstances, um, they had both large shareholders agree to this. So if one agreed to it and the other one didn't, it would be much harder for them to control the board come next year. Pontifex has two board seats, so they're resigning. So even if ADR1 um, decided not to agree to this, they wouldn't be able to win the board over next year because they wouldn't have a majority seats. So I hold no ill will towards either of those two parties, though again, Pontifex is a little dirty. They're on the board. They could have fought harder, and they didn't. They just took what's best for themselves. But ADR1, what else are they going to do? So I sold some of that this morning in pre-market. I still have about a 10% position left, which will be 36% or 37% smaller after the tender. Your issue with KROS now, just to be real brief, if you're interested, is that pro forma for the buyback, the tender, there's about 21 million shares outstanding. Where it's trading at right now means the stock will be like 13 or 12.50 to 13, something like that. Post tender, there'll be like $15 a share in cash as of June 30th, burning $1 a share a quarter indefinitely. And then you have the Takeda deal, which is worth, at least $200 million, $10 a share. So total, you have $25 in asset value, trading at $12.50, $13, but you have no path to unlock that. They're going to burn all the money, and nobody cares about this asset in DMD. So I don't know what the path is to make money here. They're going to get sued for this deal. I don't know what the ramifications of that will be. And there's still a couple other activists involved that own like 2 million shares. I don't know if they're going to sell out. It'd be very hard for them to fight now without Pontifex involved or ADR1. Um, so that's where I am with KROS. It's terrible. That 25% of the Takeda royalties through 2028 is complete garbage. I'm not even sure there'll be any milestone between now and 2028, right? They already started the phase 3. So the only milestone they might get is upon a certain enrollment or maybe a completion, but it shouldn't be completed. I don't think it's going to be completed by, maybe it's completed in 2028. I don't know the exact timeline. It won't be approved, I don't think. So that's where most of the money will come from FDA approval. And that's why they structured it like that, because they're assholes. And 25% the joke too. So I wouldn't put much value into that. It's a shame. Green mail, man. I didn't think I'd live to see the day in 2025. It's just so rare to happen, but it's nothing more than a bribe to get rid of the people that are bothering you, so that you can go on collecting your fat board checks. And there's no ownership on the board whatsoever now, and it's a disgrace. But again, the disgrace lies with the board, not with those two shareholders. All right, we have 2 more days left for a deal. If a deal happens tomorrow or Friday, if BHF trades above 60 by Friday and forward trades above 30 by Friday. Emergency Las Vegas trip, and I'm going to do a live YouTube from the bathtub. Those are my promises to you. Emergency Las Vegas, live YouTube from the bathtub. 60 on BHF, 30 on forward. Doesn't have to be a deal, just trades above that on OpX. And hasta luego.